Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our keynote address this evening. Welcome, everyone. My name is Valerie Ndueni. I'm a career advisor at the School of Continuing Studies at McGill University. Today, I'm joined by my wonderful manager, Rosalia Felice. Would you like to say hi, Rosalia?
Hi, everyone. Welcome or welcome back if you're coming in for a session and you've already been to a Power Skills session.
Thank you for joining us today. You're in for a real treat. We have the one and only Samantha Kris, who is going to guide us through the art of reinvention. Before we get started, we are going to be playing a video, which is a land acknowledgement. Before we play the video, I would like to read a few words. I would like to acknowledge that McGill University is on the land on which has long served as a site of meeting and exchange amongst Indigenous peoples, including the Odinashe and Anishinaabe nations. We acknowledge and thank the diverse Indigenous peoples whose presence marks this territory on which peoples of the world now gather. It is with respect for the links with the past, present, and future that we recognize the ongoing relationships between Indigenous peoples and other people in the Montreal community. As a daughter of colonized lands, if you're not presently in Montreal, I encourage you to take the time to explore the history of the territory of where you currently reside and learn more about those that came before you. During the video, I ask that you remain muted, and it should last a few seconds, so please bear with us as we get the video started. Just to let you know, we don't hear any sound.
Well, my apologies for the sound tech on that. It was, would you like me to play it again, Valerie, or?
Yes, if you could.
Okay, perfect. My apologies, everyone.
Welcome, everyone, to the mini science for the McGill University Bicentennial. McGill University.
I am so sorry. I am going to stop.
Territory of the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe nations. McGill.
Valerie, I am so sorry. I don't know what's happening, but.
Okay, that's okay. Thank you for trying. Thank you. All right, I have the distinct pleasure of introducing our speaker. Samantha Kris is a best-selling author, TEDx speaker, and the head of people and culture at Goalcast, the world's leading empowering media company. She has been recognized for her leadership, community involvement, and the ability to mobilize change. She is impassioned by elevating others, empowers people to step into their potential, and create opportunities for success both personally and professionally. Her proprietary way of goal setting, the Real Goal methodology, was first introduced in her book, Bossing Up. It was further explained in her TEDx talk, Setting Goals That Matter, and it is now being implemented by individuals and organizations around the globe. So when it comes to reinvention, I can't think of a better person than Samantha Kris to guide us through. Samantha, you can take us over.
Thank you so much, Valerie. And thank you for having me back. This is such an incredible initiative, and I see the buzz on LinkedIn. People love it. People are engaged. I see the participants in the chats. So I really want to keep that energy going. We have an hour together. I'm going to leave a good amount of time at the end for us to play with some of the concepts that we're going to be exploring in real time. So of course, if you have questions, please add them in the chat. We can address them at the end. If you want to chime in real time, let us know that as well. But I really want to use our time at the end of the session to kind of get our hands dirty with some of this stuff, because so often I find that we attend these types of sessions and we get this like burst of motivation and we get really pumped, and it's a Friday and it's end of day Friday, and we're like, I'm going to do something about that Monday. So as much as possible, I would like to integrate it in real time so that we can use this time together to maybe move some roadblocks, try things on for size, see how this might look in your life. What I'm going to share is really through my lived experiences so far, how I approach reinvention, and it will look and feel different for everybody. So I do want to make sure that if you are curious, if you do want to leverage the collective brain power that is with us today to see how you might be able to spark reinvention in your own life, that we have time at the end to do so. This is a topic that I am really passionate about. It's one that I'm very excited to be with you today to talk about and really to share what I've learned so far. And what's funny is that 1 year ago today, actually 1 year ago yesterday, I was speaking at the Power Skills 2020 event. And had this been a talk that I had given then, it would have been a very different keynote, because so much of who I was, my personal brand, my identity, was about what I had created, what I had accomplished, and showing the world that I've made it in some small way, and how you can too as the audience. And I thought that in order to step on stage, or in this case on screen, that I'd have to have it all figured out so that I could be the example, so that I could be the before and the after to inspire change. But this year, you're getting a very different version of me, and it will be a very different conversation. I've reinvented myself several times in my life and my career, as Valerie had mentioned, and I am on yet another journey of self-reinvention. And the truth is, I have not yet arrived at my destination and really feel like I'm building my plane mid-flight. And the truth is, this is my most exciting adventure yet. And it's funny because in my bio, I'm still leading with best-selling author and TEDx speaker, and of course, paying some tribute to Goalcast, the company I'm with now that I just absolutely adore. But you'll see that so much of my identity is focused on my accolades. That's something I want to talk about today, and something that I really want to unpack, that I'm in the process of unpacking personally, because so many people focus on the before and the after, the uplift, the success story, what it looks like to quote unquote make it. But I really want to consciously make a shift in the talks that I'm giving, in the relationships that I'm building, in the opportunities that I'm taking on, to talk about something perhaps a little less sexy. And it's the before and the during, because that's all there is, really, or all that matters, in my opinion, anyway. You think about the greats. I mean, Michael Jordan never mastered basketball. Steve Jobs didn't overcome innovation, right? They were constantly iterating. They were always evolving, and they were forever becoming. And that's what I feel reinvention is at its core. It's about walking away from what is. And that takes mourning what was, right? It's not always going to be easy. And that decision to walk away from what is, there's a version of you or your reality, your scenario, that you may have to say goodbye to, and that deserves its space. That will not always be easy. It's about anticipating and being excited about what can be and leaning into that possibility. It's about challenging your beliefs wanting to change, that will require you to shed some layers, to do some deep introspection, to encounter parts of yourself that might hurt, and to heal that pain, to free your mind. And in so doing, there'll be a lot of chaos, but there will also be a moment of calm and silence, and embracing that silence, which I know for me was a real challenge. I like to go, 0 to 100 real quick. I keep my life, my calendar busy. And embracing that silence has been fundamental in understanding how reinvention can take shape in my life. And it's about listening inward and being willing to let go of the parts of your identity that no longer serve you. And if that sounds terrifying, you're not crazy. There's nothing wrong with you. It's quite the process. It is one of the most horrifying yet fundamental creative dynamics of the human experience. And it really is a creative process. As the synopsis for this session implied, self-reinvention is not a science, not in my opinion anyway. I do see it as an art. And I think that we are all the creators of our life, and that what we are living, how we are choosing to live it, and what we are building is our masterpiece. And the more comfortable you are with releasing the identity of who you were, the more excited you can become with who you are and who you have the potential to become. And in my experience, what often got in the way or slowed me down or really brought my self-reinvention to a halt was the fact that I was tied to an identity that I was afraid to leave behind. And I've seen this time and time again. It's a pattern for me. Usually, and perhaps this will resonate, it's not the fear of failure that gets me stuck. It's the fear of success. What happens if I succeed? Will I like it? Will I want it? Will I have to make sacrifices? Will I have to relocate? Will my friends think I've changed? Will I change? Will I be less available for my loved ones? Will I lose myself in the process? Maybe drop a 1 in the chat if any of that resonates with you. Just simple number 1, any of that. Rebecca, Andrew, Rosalia, thank you. Yeah, everything, great. There's so much to consider when we are embarking on this change journey, on a change process. And I've been real hesitant to come to terms with the fact that a lot of that is stemmed in fear for me. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But this is something, that fear of success, that was very much the case for me when I was contemplating joining Goalcast. This was in the month of May of 2020. So kind of peak COVID time, lots was changing, and surprisingly was really doing well in my business. I had my own business around the time that I was joining, still do. It's kind of my main hustle has become my side hustle now. And I was doing leadership training, communication training, and change management, which overnight, when the world shut down, became some of the most sought after skill sets. So my business skyrocketed. And so much of my self-worth was intertwined, as I mentioned at the beginning, with what I've achieved. And the fact that I was able to make my side hustle into my full-time business, that it was growing, that it was doing well, and the idea of stepping away from that, it didn't compute. Who was I without the status of best-selling author, of TEDx speaker, of entrepreneur? To me, they were mutually exclusive. I went into business for myself and created this public identity as an author and a speaker because I wanted to help people take inspired action. That was my purpose. And when I found myself in negotiation with Goalcast, as Valerie mentioned, the world's leading empowering media company, And they were willing to work with me to co-create what would be my dream job. And instead of jumping in with excitement, my very existence felt threatened and my old habits kicked in. What if I succeed? What if I take on this role and become so successful that my business I spent 5 years building and the reputation I've built and the person that I've become ceases to exist? And most people will quit before they begin because they are afraid they won't make it. But I knew that I would. And I know that that's a very privileged position to be in, but that thought crippled me. And I was so reluctant to release the identity of who I was that I couldn't see and make space for who I could become. And I had blinders on with a clear path ahead, one that I chose, one that I wanted, one that I built. But there was a whole world in my peripheral vision that I refused to acknowledge because my value was my identity as I knew it. And I almost felt like I was betraying my current self, a version that I had worked so hard to become by entertaining other possibilities. I had become consumed by my persona, and I'd felt that I had to uphold this brand. And if I'm being completely honest with you, it's something I still struggle with today. But I felt that I had to uphold it to the detriment of my happiness, because the truth that I wasn't willing to accept at the time was that I really wanted this job. I really wanted it, and I wasn't allowing myself to feel that because it didn't fit in the box that I had put myself in. And it forced me to see where else this behavior was showing up in my life, what other opportunities I was keeping at arm's length, and how resistant I actually was to change. And as someone with a background in change management and a podcast dedicated to change and a strong advocate of personal and professional growth, this triggered somewhat of an identity crisis. Who I was in that moment was not who I wanted to be. And that was really scary. And it's not that I wasn't happy with myself or where I was at. In fact, I would have told you that I was exactly where I wanted to be, and I would have meant it genuinely. But the reality was I also kind of wanted something else. I kind of wanted something different, something that threatened what I was building, at least so I thought. And the thought of wanting something else and leaving all that behind, it shook me to my core. And it took a soul-searching trip to Bali, hiring a hypnotherapist, and lots of coaching to come to terms with the fact that I wasn't actually letting it go. And I get weirdly emotional when I get to this part. I don't know why. I think because I'm really still in it. I'm in the thick of it, and I'm working through this in real time. But I wasn't letting it go. I haven't let it go. I was letting it and myself evolve. And it wasn't the first time that I found myself in this situation. I never wear eyeliner, and it's for these reasons. You never know when you're going to get a good cry in. And I'm like in a really great mood. It's unpredictable. My eyes have a life of their own. But it's something that I feel really, really strongly about, and something that I'm actually quite eager to explore in real time with you, because the old me would have been like, I need to be polished and have it figured out and put together so that I can come here and wow you and leaving you feeling so inspired and so motivated. And my ambition for this talk in particular is, quite honestly, not to motivate you, not to inspire you. If that happens, that's great. But more than that, what I want to do is validate your experience and show that, like, we're in this together and you're not alone. If you're feeling like you're on the cusp of something bigger, that you want something different and you don't know where the hell to start or how to do it, and you're feeling afraid, that it's normal. And if a few tears fall, you guys, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Just have to deal with it, I suppose. But getting back to the story of not letting it go and really just letting myself evolve and coming to terms with that, I kind of realized that it wasn't the first time that I found myself in this situation. It wasn't my first rodeo. It wasn't my first self-reinvention rodeo. When I was 19, I made the conscious decision to reinvent myself for what I think was the first time. As a new graduate from correctional intervention, I was hired at the inpatient rehab where I had done my internship as an addictions counselor. And anyone who perhaps attended the panel on Wednesday or has attended any of my past talks before would know that this was a really difficult spot for me to be in because my patients were battling addictions older than I was at that time. And I felt really in over my head and poorly equipped to take on the weight of my work. But I had long dreamt of being in the correctional field since I was a little girl, which might sound bizarre to some. But my childhood best friend, Sarah, this is another emotional part, you guys, heads up, okay? She went missing and was later found murdered. And I thought that by going into this field, that if I could help people like the man who hurt her, then I can make this world a better place. And that's what I sought out to do. And that became my purpose. And that became my identity. But once I was in it, I didn't want it. I didn't want to carry that weight anymore. I didn't feel that I could. And my energy was being siphoned at the realization that this wasn't for me. And that felt honestly gut-wrenching. I felt like I was back in square one, thinking about where I wanted to be, what I wanted to do. And that felt like I'd failed. It felt like I'd failed myself. It felt like I had failed my family for supporting my years of education. And it felt like I'd failed Sarah. And it was only in releasing that identity that I'd carried for so long that I could be open to new possibilities. And I did a complete 180 after a conversation with a friend. I decided that wedding planning would be a logical next step. And I decided to rebuild. I was looking for something different, anything else than what I was doing that felt lighter, that felt more creative, that felt like it allowed different parts of my personality to shine. And I loved it. And I decided to stay in that field for almost 4 years and stepped into a version of me that I had not given any space to explore prior to that. And I didn't stay in that field. Ultimately, I pursued my interest in marketing. I got an entry-level position and earned 5 promotions in 5 years. I learned everything I could about business in that time. And when I was 26, another moment of self-reinvention, I decided to pursue another long-term dream of mine, which was starting my own business. And my then partner was a little less than enthusiastic that my passion for starting a business outweighed my desire to start a family. And that's something that I had thought I wanted, that I had promised. And so I ignored the flame that was burning inside me to create and to start and to embark on this journey of entrepreneurship. I ignored that flame because I knew, like, once again, that I could do it. And I knew that by succeeding, would be the demise of my relationship. And I was right. Newly divorced, living on my own for the first time, broke, $40,000 in debt. I looked around my apartment. I was on my air mattress. I barely had any other furniture. And I looked at the empty walls and I saw a blank canvas. Another opportunity to rebuild, to create, to reinvent. And I thought about the me that I would have to let go of in order to make space for the me that I wanted to be. And that version of me was so clear. I decided to give her her own name, her own identity, one that I could step into and introduce to the world. And so Samantha Kris was born. I didn't totally reinvent the wheel here, you guys. Kris is my middle name, so it's not like I went rogue, Madonna. But it was a change, and it was different, and it felt new and fresh and aligned. And everything, every choice, every opportunity, every person that I let into my life needed to serve her, needed to serve this kind of 3.0 version of me, if you will. And that actually served me really well in the early days of starting my business and in really rediscovering myself, or even discovering myself for the first time as an entrepreneur in this capacity. But there were parts of me, both good and, I don't want to say bad, maybe not so good, that I pushed into the dark in order to let her shine. And it was only recently when I was speaking with one of my coaches and I explained that I was really struggling to balance Samantha Kris, speaker, author, entrepreneur, and Samantha Kris, head of people and culture at Goalcast, that she asked me what I'm afraid of. And as I alluded to earlier, I was convinced I don't feel fear. Who, me? I could do anything. I'm not afraid. I did a TED talk on setting goals that are aligned to liberate you from fear. Like, this is something that I had made so much part of my identity, that we can be fearless. We can step into that energy. And as any good coach does, she challenged me. She's like, what if you are afraid of fear itself? It was like this inception moment. I was like, what? She's like, just hang with me here. She told me fear is just a messenger. Imagine it's a little guy on a bike riding by with something that he wants to tell you. That's all it is. It's an indicator that something else is happening. It's a message from your subconscious, from your gut, from your heart, from source, whatever, or however you believe those messages come to you. And I believe that what I was doing to protect my identity was waving him on by. Not home, nothing to see here, see you later. I don't want your messages. Keep going, keep riding. So she challenged me to explore that. She said, where do you think those messages are going? Because they don't just go away. So I started to visualize this little guy on a bike. I don't know why, but in my mind, I was in Central Park. I've only been there a couple of times, but I kept going back to this vision of Central Park. I actually think I do know why. I'll get there in a second. Like I said, we're working this out in real time together, folks. So I had this vision of Central Park, and I pictured that every time he drove by on his bike and rang his little bell and I wished him away, he would throw the envelope under the bridge. And probably dating myself here, but that's okay. One of my favorite childhood movies was The Troll in Central Park. And he lived under the bridge. And so it's all coming together now. It's all starting to make sense as to why I envisioned him driving past this bridge and throwing these messages into the darkness. And she's challenged me to continue to push that, to lean into that story, to explore that visual and see what happens every time I replay it in my mind. Can I get 5% more, just 5% more comfortable with fear, with exploring what's under there each time I walk by? So I've been going through that practice, visually walking by the bridge, building up the confidence, the courage to see what's in there, and opening one envelope at a time. Curious about what the messages are that I have perhaps been ignoring, and willing, increasingly so, it's still a challenge, to face the fears that I feel threatened the identity that I've built and that I've given so much power to. So if you're feeling stuck, or that you're in need of change, or that there is another version of you waiting to be stepped into, I implore you to think about the parts of your identity that you're afraid of. And I promise you, everyone has them. And they may be tucked far in the shadows, but they're there. And maybe it's not a bridge for you. Maybe it's a treasure chest at the bottom of the ocean. Maybe it's in the attic. I encourage you to think about what that would look like for you if this is, an exercise that resonates. And try, in whatever capacity that means to you, to get 5% more comfortable with fear each week, and be willing to ask yourself difficult questions. Like, what would it mean if the thing that matters most is something you have to let go of? Who do you have to become if who you are today no longer feels aligned or serves you to its fullest potential? Or in my case, what are you trying to protect? And it's been a huge learning experience for me that I have a collection of behaviors and traits that I have fed into and held close since I was very young. And this concept of trying to protect my identity, my reputation, it runs deep, and it has taken some time to unpack and to understand. But when it comes to reinvention, the message in your envelopes, at the bottom of your ocean, in your treasure chest, in your attic, wherever they are for you, they hold the key to your reinvention. But you have to be willing to go into the darkness and be brave enough to shine that light. Be curious enough and willing to learn from it. Because it's just a guy on a bike. It's just a message. And it doesn't have to threaten your existence. It doesn't have to challenge who you want to become next. And I would be willing to bet, I don't think fear is the only thing that will prevent us from leaning into reinvention and putting our artist hat on and stepping into a creative mode to design on our canvas. But I'm willing to bet that if it's not fear that is at the core, that it's not far behind. And it's only in facing them that I've found that I've been able to really look at things head on. And one of the things that I found most helpful for me is writing things down. I'm really visual, so if you're a visual learner, perhaps this will work for you as well. It's not enough for me to acknowledge. In my exercise, they were envelopes with messages. So what I did was I wrote them down on actual pieces of paper, put them in envelopes, and taped them to my wall as a physical reminder of the fears that I have yet to face, But there is a certain power that comes with it not being trapped in your mind. It's no longer just philosophical or kept internally. It's something I can look at, that I can shred, that I can light on fire if I want, or tuck back in the envelope and put it back under the bridge if I feel it's not yet time to address and that I might need a little more courage to face. But it has less of a power because it's something that I can see. It's something I can face. It's something I feel I can interact with in a way that seems less scary. And so in the last 20 or so minutes of the session, as comfortable as you would feel, as much as you're willing to play with or to explore, I would love to open the floor and see what are some of the things in your own reinvention that you feel are blocking you. What do you feel, if there's anything that you've come to recognize, maybe this has sparked something, and it doesn't have to be, it doesn't mean because you speak it here that it is ultimately your truth, but is there something you thought of that you said, you know what, I am holding on to that? What does that look like for you? Something that you've recognized you are trying to protect and could perhaps benefit from the people in this room to start to put the armor down and kind of unbuild the walls that you've put up one brick at a time. I know that this was positioned as a keynote, so you're thinking, I did not come prepared to engage. I have no interest in going into that bridge with y'all. That's okay too. But for anyone who's brave enough, I think it would be really interesting. And I wholeheartedly believe that if you find the courage today, Monday will look very, very different for you. Miriam.
Hey, Sam. It's such a pleasure to see you again. Sam and I we met years ago. If you don't follow her yet on socials, please follow her. Her story is amazing. And so what I've been kind of struggling with is the aspect of my identity that is related to my size. I'm starting a new business venture, my second business venture, that I am calling the Fashionista. And I had a lot of trouble just using the word fat in any context, let alone for the company that I want to build. And part of that hesitation has been because sorry, now it's my turn. It's been hard just to admit to myself that being fat is not, there's no morality behind it. It's not good, it's not bad. It just is. And taking away that moral aspect behind it is what's been helping me to be more comfortable with myself, and also to be that voice for my company, to let other women who are dealing with the same thing like me to realize that just because you're fat doesn't mean you can't be beautiful and sexy and charming and confident and just be authentic, be yourself. And our voices, deserve to be heard just like anyone else's. And so I just wanted to say thank you so much, Samantha, for sharing your story and how it's been so inspirational. Excuse me. And yeah, I think that my Monday is going to look very different as well.
Thank you for sharing, Miriam. It's in these stories where I think we start to see that this manifests in different ways, right? In our lives, in how we identify ourselves and how we connect with others. And it's so powerful. I really, really genuinely appreciate you coming off mute, because I could tell you the last week and a bit preparing for this, I was like, I don't know if I've got what it takes. And so I know the courage to be vulnerable, and I see what you're building. And I mean, I'm a longtime fan of yours. I think everyone has a light, but I've had the privilege of seeing yours in person. And I am grateful that you have this confidence and have had this realization, because I have no doubt that it will be a ripple effect of positivity and helping people to to find their voice and place as well. Thank you. Rosalia, I think, oh, we've got Guy too, a couple hands. I don't know who was up first.
Go ahead, Guy.
I was just applauding.
Okay.
Just one thing I'll say, from what I'm hearing, we're all trying to do the best we can with who we are at the present moment. And we have to accept the fact that we're going to make mistakes and we're going to try to do better and just keep along. But everybody here, everybody I've seen this week, it's just always the message of we're all in this together. Thanks, Samantha. This was awesome.
Thank you, Guy. And I would agree, you know, and there's something you said about, you know, the present moment. We're doing the best we can in the present moment, that I think is so powerful and not given enough attention in our hearts and our minds and in our workplaces and reality, really, that when we are, and I'll speak for myself, when I was so caught up on the after, on the achievement, on the completion, on the accolades, and when I succeed, this was lost. This type of understanding of myself, this type of connection, this type of recognizing where I'm at now and the power that being in the present moment has on the lives around us was lost. And it's a conscious shift that I want to make to be more authentic, to give more visibility. You know, I did an interview with someone last week and explained something so beautifully. She said, you know, we see these memes and these pictures on the internet. Imagine a lion who's jumped across the river for his prey, and we see him once he's crossed, once he's conquered. But the courage, the growth, the fear, oh shit, this is happening. It's in the jump, it's in mid-flight, and that doesn't get enough visibility. And I am so grateful for your openness in receiving kind of the fact that I'm in it in real time, and for Miriam putting your hand up and that you're in it real time. And the more we talk about it, the more we realize no one's got it figured out. We're all just in it in real time. Okay, enough of me speaking. I'm seeing hands up, so I'll stop for now.
So I gave my place to, well, I gave the place to Guy. I wanted Guy to go first because I know he always drops gems, and he did. So this is for Miriam, because Miriam in another session told us about her job concept, and I went to look it up right away. And as I'll call myself pleasantly plump woman, when I saw the name Fashionista, I thought it was brilliant. And I was celebrating the fact that you didn't cutesy it up, but I loved that it was called Fashionista. I thought that was brave and wonderful. And I invite you all to check out her website. Her the page is gorgeous and filled with fat chicks who look incredible. And I just love it. And Miriam, I think you're doing something incredible. I looked at it and my first thought was, damn, I wish I would have come up with this idea. Seriously, I think what you're doing is amazing. And I wouldn't change the name for a second. You know, I just thought it was just on point and brilliant. So good for you.
Thank you. How about Nia? I see your hand up. Naya?
It's Nia. Well, my name is Stefania, but it's so easy. It's easier to call me Nia, so I go by Nia.
Great.
Sometimes. So thank you everybody for sharing. For me, I think it would be the fear of not so much rejection, but not being valued. So as I mentioned in the chat, the way I deal with it my entire life almost was to always downplay my potential, almost like playing dumb almost, just so people don't put too much attention to me, or so I can fit in a group. Because growing up being smart was not trendy. Now it is. Everybody wants to be a geek, or I don't know. But I was like, growing up in the 80s, that was not cool. That was weird, awkward. So I think that, but it's I'm still working on it. And my best friend, she said, well, you're just afraid of your own light. Like you're afraid to be yourself. But at the same time, I could relate to what you were saying. It feels like I'm living at 60% of my potential all the time. But what I really want is to be 100% myself. So that's the dilemma.
What I would, I mean, you don't have to share here, right, as much as you're comfortable, but I would encourage you to think about what parts of you, what is that 40% that you don't feel is being valued or that you've given enough airtime to?
Well, my grandfather was the only person that always made me feel comfortable. And I think when he passed away, I didn't know what to do with myself anymore. Because I felt like it was the only person that, he never said I love you, but just looking into his eyes, I could see that. I could feel it. I knew it. And I felt loved and valued, and I was so confident, and I was willing to try and to make mistakes and everything. And I think that with him not being there anymore, I don't see it in anybody. Like, I don't see it that much, I should say. So that 40% would be me being spontaneous, me sharing my ideas. I'm a very creative person. Just me being just speaking, like just sharing my ideas and voice my ideas, I guess. So that's the 40% that, sometimes I just listen to people. I do one-on-one, like I can write. I think that I hide behind the screen a lot. I write, I can chat for days. But, picking up the phone and having that discussion, not there. But my best friend, she's like, I mean, when we having conversations, she's like, man, you have no idea, the world is ready to welcome you. It's just you, like, you just have to step in, just do it. I'm like, yeah, but there's so many people doing it already,
Yeah, it's a lot easier said than done.
Yeah.
And I think we trick ourselves into thinking people have done it before. The market's oversaturated. There will be no audience for me. And yet there are people doing what you want to do, who are finding their audience, who are achieving the things that, that 40% that you hold dear to you. I'll give my 2 cents, and I think it would be interesting to open the floor to get other perspectives as well. One of the things that helped for me in tapping into the areas that I felt were going under nurtured, right? So that kind of 40% for me was to find things, to get really clear on what I'm passionate about, and then discovering low stakes opportunities to play with it.
Yeah.
And if you frame it through the lens of play, it becomes a little less scary. And when the stakes are low, it becomes even less scary. So for example, if for example, you want to be a great cook and you're thinking, I really want to practice a certain dish. I want to master this dish. I'm going to invite my friends over. I'm going to put on this beautiful dinner. It's going to be spectacular. Well, if the dinner sucks, it's low stakes. Your friends are going to forgive you. They're going to come back for dinner. They're going to think, well, at least we had some wine. It was a good few hours. And so if you create environments where you're able to test and create and play and explore those areas where there is nothing yet at stake, then you can slowly start to raise the stakes in life, in work, in your relationships. And you've started to build that confidence muscle that you can, right? You've shown yourself, I can do this. And in those moments where the stakes are a little higher, you think, well, I've done this before. It's not so scary. And I've found great support in building a community. I started a Facebook group. I was a new entrepreneur, didn't know what to do, where to start. So I started a Facebook group, and it was called Service Swap, and it was a bartering group. and it was Montreal based, and it was just, hey, I'll help you, you'll help me, we'll build this together. And the group is, you know, like 4,000 people now, and international. And I think you'll start to see that the more you allow yourself to be seen, the more you'll find your people showing up, your community, your crew, the people who will put you on that pedestal and give you not only opportunities, but the opportunity for you to see yourself as worthy and capable. But again, I'd love to open the floor and see, you know, does that resonate? Does Nia's story resonate? How have you been able to tap into that 40% or whatever that looks like in your life?
But before you say that, before they speak, I just want to mention that my best friend, she gave me the exact same advice. and she she had the courage to actually book gigs for me, not giving me any choice. And she was like, "You're so great." And I had, well, one time she booked a wedding for me. I'm like, "A wedding?" And she's like, "Yeah, I mean, you're gonna take pictures of that wedding with your cell phone." I'm like, "Are you crazy? Nobody's gonna want someone taking pictures of their wedding with my cell phone." But I did, and I got paid. And then she booked another gig for me lately. And because of COVID, you know, photographers could not be in certain places. So I did another gig. And that time I got paid even 5 times more. That was a gig for taking pictures of a little girl, 10-year-old. And the mom, she paid me $1,300. And that was with my cell phone.
That's amazing. I love that you have that as a kind of a proof of concept of what happens once you put yourself out there a little bit.
Yeah, totally.
Thank you for sharing, Nia.
Thank you for listening.
Anyone else? Or any other questions? I don't know if there were some that had come through the chat. Phil.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Can.
Yes. So this session has been very inspiring and very, I don't know if I should say eye-opening, but it resonates a lot with me. And I'll try to be clear, you know, in what I'm feeling. But you know, it's a combination of things for me. But I believe that a lot of what I'm having trouble with is these fears. And it's weird because there's like dichotomies, like contradicting feelings. Let's say at the same time I'm feeling it's kind of like I have this fear of failure. I also have this fear of success. And especially with success, kind of what you alluded to, or you mentioned earlier, the fact of, am I going to change, or who will I have to be to you know, if I reach a certain level of success. But for me, it's that, but also, you know, will I be enough? Will I be able to live up to that success and the demand or the expectations? So so far I've just kind of lived in a bubble of comfort and stability, because although I'm not fully fulfilled and happy, in a way I rather deal with the evil I know than not the evil I don't know, but the unknown. And certain things I'm dealing with also, it has to with belief in self-confidence. And I'm at a point where I'm tired of myself, like where often I know that people seem to have more belief in me than I have belief in my own self. And it's like, it's a struggle. It's annoying, you know? So, so, you know, what I've what I'm still working on is reframing my perspectives, reframing my filters, you know. And as you said, also writing things out. I realized that, especially I try to have this routine in the morning. I go walk or run, and the movement, the action, it stimulates, it activates my brain, my thoughts, and then I get all types of thoughts to write out, you know, kind of like a diary. And I find that it's like I let my heart speak out, and it makes things more real, and like face those fears, face those monsters. So it's a process, but you know, your story definitely resonates with me, and I definitely believe that I have a lot to offer and greatness to share, and you know, to offer and share with people. It's just I have to get over certain humps. So that's on a professional and personal side. Let's say I'm at different crossroads in my life. So I, you know, it's not as clear. I'm not being too clear perhaps, but is anyway, I just felt maybe I could speak. It could maybe resonate with other people too. Who knows, you know?
I'm glad you did, because like that's what this is about, right? Like, it's not clear. When we're in it, it's messy, and it feels gross or exciting, or both, right? It doesn't have to be either or. And I think it's in kind of owning that mess and saying like, I'm here for the ride. Let's see where it goes, and finding the support in that, really powerful. And so I applaud you, because I wouldn't have had personally the courage to said this, you know, a year ago, of like, I don't have it figured out. I'm afraid to admit that, or I'm ashamed to admit that I am afraid. And I would have kept that in, and that weighs so heavily on you, right? When you don't let that out, like what you're doing now, I see it as like a release valve. You know, the more you can let some of that pressure out, because that's what it is. It builds until you break, and it will happen in some way. It's going to look different from everyone, but if you don't let that out, it can control you. And so just talking about it, letting people know, feeling them hear themselves in your story is huge. And if there's anything I can say as kind of parting words, is that everything you have lived and experienced is evidence. They are like artifacts that you will bounce back. You have bounced back. You are still here. You have no real reason to think that you can't tackle whatever gets thrown your way, because everything that's been thrown at you so far, you've dealt with.
Certainly. And you know, life has this funny way of throwing signs at you, and I find that when you're not being your full authentic self and you're going against the grain, I often pay the price. So it's just I feel like these are kind of reminders that I get, and it's like just keep believing in your truth, you know. So yeah. Anyway, it's
Thank you. Valerie, I'm good to go a couple more minutes. We have a few hands up. I don't know if you have the hard stop and another session to get to, so I want to be respectful of time.
No, we do have about 15 more minutes, so it's really up to you. If you're willing to give us more of your time, that would be great.
Of course, anyone who needs to jump, feel free. I won't be insulted, but anyone who's got a few more minutes, I'd love to hang. Andrew, I see your hand up.
Hey, thanks for sticking around for a few more minutes.
Pleasure.
I really related to what Phil was saying about, you know, doing something new and that fear of success. For me right now, like I'm trying to transition into going full-time in my business and doing a lot of new things. And it's taking like different aspects of my personality and how I show up to places. And it's kind of like what you're saying about the lion, and you don't see the fear beforehand. It's like, oh yeah, that's the moment that I'm in right now. Just like that adrenaline, the terror, the excitement. So yeah, I've been really kind of in a space where I'm trying to transition and push myself that bit farther. And show up as someone who doesn't allow themselves to kind of fade into the background like I would tend to do in other situations. So it was really, thanks for sharing, your story and for showing someone in a different part of their journey, seeing all these successes, but also seeing the vulnerable moments or the real moments or the moments that you don't have all the dots connected. Because it's like, oh yeah, just because I don't have my dots connected, there's always people who keep pushing and who keep showing that that's okay. And it's okay to show up as you are and to kind of move into a new version of yourself.
Thank you for your feedback. And I would say, I think we met at the Influencers Unite event. It was the first time we met.
Yeah.
And in what I've seen of your virtual presence anyway, I've noticed a conscious shift to be more at the forefront. Please, I mean this as respectfully as possible, but I do, in my first impression of you, I would say that you were a little bit more blended into the background of like, I'm here, but like, you don't really have to notice me, but like, hey, it's a pleasure to meet you. And I'm seeing your virtual presence as one that is like, no, I'm here. Like, and I've got something to say. And I've seen what I would describe as that conscious effort to really build more of a digital footprint and a brand for yourself and saying, no, I'm someone you ought to be paying attention to.
Thank you. That means a lot to me, Sam.
Yeah. So keep it up.
For sure.
Thanks, Andrew. Petrona. Hi, Petrona.
Hello. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just want to say thank you so much. This really was not what I was expecting. And I got so much more out of it, especially as someone who has had to reinvent herself so many different times. And now I'm inventing myself to be an author. So it's just so funny. The other day I was walking down the street and I'm like, well, what if no one buys my book? So it's always replaying in the back of my head. What if no one comes to my book reading? And but now, following this beautiful and emotional discussion with so many beautiful and inspiring nuggets from everyone participating, it's giving me even more courage, and I feel like I can do it. My book is finished, finished writing it. So if one person shows up and if one person buys my book, I know that I would have been the lion and stepped out on courage. So thank you so much, Sam. I loved it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Petrona. And I had that same fear when I was writing my book. It's like, I just need it to resonate with one person. If one person buys this, I'll be so happy. And there's something incredible that happens when you let yourself be seen, and I mean really seen, and people want to support that, and people see themselves in you and in your story, and that one person turns to 10, turns to 20, turns to 100, turns to 3,000 people that are going to buy your book and will make it a bestseller. I have no doubt whatsoever.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
You got to think, I think it was Rosalia that said in the comments, what if thousands of people buy it? You got to think about what is the best that can happen. Forget about worst case scenario. There's too many of them anyway, but think what's the best that can happen and make it so. I think that is it for questions and hands up. Thank you guys so much for showing up. I wasn't sure. Leaving 20 minutes for this kind of discussion was a bit of a ballsy move. It's like, I really hope, talking about I hope someone buys the book. I'm like, I really hope just one person has a question. But really appreciate you showing up and, for yourself, for others. And I really appreciate the dialogue and for meeting me where I'm at, right? This is new. It's new for me to show up in this way. And I feel very, very seen and very welcomed, and I have you to thank. So thank you, Valerie and Rosalia and McGill and Katz for really giving me this platform and allowing me to connect with so many incredible people.
Thank you. It's us who thanks you, Samantha. I too, I'm going to take the words of Petrona. Very unexpected. This is not at all as I was expecting. And I mean that in the most beautiful way. This was fantastic. And to Petrona, I love what Samantha said. She thought the same thing about her book, but I got her copy.
Oh,
I
God.
actually went to the book signing at Chapters, and I had no idea who she was. But I'd heard about the book. I didn't even remember from where. So I thought I would go there. And who knew that, how many years later is it? I guess 3 years.
Yeah.
That she would be at Power Skills. So life has a funny way of turning out, but she's a bestseller. So if she thought the same thing, then the same thing can happen to you. Thank you all for sharing too. But Samantha, I just want to say thank you for being open, and thank you for being vulnerable. That obviously allowed other people to be vulnerable. And I'm sure there's, maybe put one word in the chat, those of you who are here, with how you're feeling right now as you leave this session. So Samantha knows that, since she didn't get an opportunity to speak to all of you, of course, I'm buying it. Yes, you should. I highly recommend it. So on behalf of Valerie, thank you, Samantha. We hope to see you at the next Power Skills. It's always a great pleasure to have you with us. And look at all these words: introspective, empowered, immensely grateful. So this is inspired. So this is what you have created with this. I love this. This was phenomenal. And I'm really glad that you were all here to experience this late on a Friday afternoon too. So good for all of you for participating. So thank you all again. There are a couple sessions left today, if you can believe it. And then we're still here tomorrow. When we will be sending a feedback survey after this, probably next week. So please do give us your feedback. And you can give us feedback about specific sessions as well, and tell us what you'd like to see. But if you'd like to see more of this kind of sharing, please let us know, because we had a few sessions like this, and they not quite like this. This was this was amazing. Not that the other ones weren't. I'm walking into a trap, but this was phenomenal. So let us know. And thank you all for being here. Thank you for being at Power Skills, and good luck with reinventing yourself, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.